According to the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, the timelines associated with election petitions and the legal process in Nigeria are designed to ensure that disputes are addressed properly, transparency maintained, and justice served in a timely manner. Adhering to these timelines is considered crucial for upholding the integrity of the electoral process and the rule of law. But is that what's been happening, especially since the return to civilian democracy 26 years ago in 1999? Well, our next guest is best suited to offer proper answers to all the emerging questions around that subject, and he is Chief Michael Aondoakaa, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, a former Attorney General of the Federation, and Nigeria's Minister of Justice. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the morning show this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right.
Happy New Year.
We wish you the same. Happy New Year to you too.
Perfect. Well, I'll start off by, elaborating on the INEC chairman. INEC, through its chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, raised concern that several electoral offences cases are still pending before the courts. Almost 2 years after the 2023 general elections, we know that there's been calls for significant reforms in the electoral process in Nigeria. But as the INEC chairman stated, I believe last week, that the obstacle to the speedy dispensation of justice is that electoral offences are not time-bound. Now, when we talk about electoral reforms, should we be looking at making these cases time-bound? Should that not be the priority at this moment?
Well, electoral offences ought not to be time-bound because there's no time limit for criminal prosecution. There's also no time limit for apprehension of a criminal who has committed an offense. Our focus should be more on how to shorten the election petitions themselves and ensure that they are reasonably disposed of before the elected officials are sworn in. I think that ought to be the direction we should be talking about, not the issue of criminal offenses.
All right, Chief Aondoakaa, but I think that a key component of what the INEC chairman was saying is that, and there are two things here, while expressing his frustration that many of the cases are still pending in court. So two key things that he said. First, he spoke about the fact that such electoral offences are prosecuted by the magistrate and state high courts in the jurisdiction where the offences were allegedly committed. And because of that, it takes a while for rulings and judgments to happen because the courts are busy with other things. And therefore, it's now narrowing down to the popular proposition that there ought to be an electoral offences tribunal. In fact, part of what he's asking for is that the media should join INEC in that advocacy, for a special electoral offences tribunal. How feasible is this to you, and do you think that it will help in the sort of advocacy that INEC is asking for, a speedy delivery of justice?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. During the President Yar'Adua electoral reforms,
yes, we can hear you, sir. Go on, sir. Can you hear me, Chief Aondoakaa?
Electoral reform of Justice Wales, we propose electoral offences tribunal. But, I left office, so we don't know what came out of it. Ours was to have an electoral offences tribunal to deal with electoral offences. The idea was to create a deterrence It should be speedily. It should have no other jurisdiction but to deal with matters relating to electoral offences. And it was an executive bill, actually. It was sent to National Assembly. I don't know what came out of it. I really don't know. They can revisit that. It is desirable, and I agree with the INEC chairman, to have an electoral offences tribunal, because the issue of electoral offences are part of the corrupt practices affecting the election. And if people are punished, penal provisions and even other sanctions, there will be deterrence. Young people that are eager to serve the politician will find themselves in prisons, and the other young people around the environment will not like to participate in that. And that was the basic in which, if you look at Justice Way's report, Electoral Offences Tribunal was specifically proposed. And when it came to the Federal Executive Council, which I was the subcommittee chairman to review the report for us to produce a white paper, we also accepted the establishment of the Electoral Offences Tribunal, and it was forwarded to the National Assembly. And I think that it's desirable for this present government to revisit that in order to make our election more credible. Credible in the sense that the tribunal having sole responsibility to deal with electoral offences, it will be dealt with speedily, and it will create a deterrence on people who might like to take the law into their hands during elections.
Well, I mean, we understand that it would be great to have some sort of tribunal. But I mean, the issue of this electoral offenses not having a time limit, I understand that you say that, criminal offenses are not time bound, so therefore, these cases should not be time bound. I know that Professor Yakubu has said that, no priority or attention is given to these electoral offenses cases. So, I mean, when we talk about issues that are time bound, these electoral cases, when they come up, it goes on and is carried over from one general election to another. Oftentimes, people might just even not want to continue prosecuting their case. What will be the disadvantage in having these actual offenses looked at in court in a speedy manner because of the time of the cases, really?
I have already highlighted there's a huge advantage for having those cases speedily tried. The main reason why people do not care is that even if I'm arraigned to court for an electoral offense, it will take time, and that is not quite good. So it is desirable, but I told you the fastest way this can be done is to separate, because a judge cannot of his own say should take precedent over criminal cases pending before him. First, there's a procedure. Cases are called out in court based on seniority. And if the senior comes, he picks his cases. And we have inadequate staffing down at the magistrate level. So when the seniors do their cases, judges are doing manual writing. So by the time it goes to maybe to that type of cases, the judge or the magistrate must have been tired, and then normally goes for an adjournment. But assuming we had, but there's also another small window that can be achieved. Professor Yakubu, as chairman of INEC, need to organize an interface with National Judicial Institute for the chief judges of the states, of the 36 states and FCT, to find a way they can create by way of procedural rules, criminal procedural rules, where they can fast-track the electoral offenses. This will become a matter of policy, but not really a matter of law. Hold a meeting with the judges, present the position, and let them create a division within the magistrates that deals with electoral offenses, while we'll be pushing for establishment of electoral offenses tribunal. I think that will be more credible. It will be faster. Most of the agencies like EFCC, AMCON, they do have seminars where judges are invited, the chief judges, and from there they have a better understanding of this and how they can move and fast track. This can be also done at the chief judges level. The chief judges of the 36 states and FCT will have interface with him through National Judicial Institute, and he will present this position to them, and they should be able to find a quick solution pending where a concrete and permanent legal framework will be done. That can move the cases and give them priority. For instance, under the rules of the Court of Appeal and even most of the cases, economic crimes have a fast-track division where the cases and relating to economic crimes and corruption are fast-tracked. You have the fast-track rules of the Court of Appeal. They can have that done, and the judges, the chief judges can issue rules and guidelines for operation of the magistrates when it comes to electoral offenses. That can be done. But the permanent solution is to reenact the Electoral Offences Tribunal. That tribunal will have only one responsibility: to deal with electoral offenses. It will have an elaborate responsibility dealing with the sponsors, it has a deeper meaning than this. Electoral offenses are not just those who are arrested, but those who sponsored the commission, or they ought to be brought to book. And that has become, I think that is where in practical terms difficulties come. Those associated with electoral offenses in most times are associated with people who are elected and sworn into powerful positions. So it becomes a really difficult. For instance, magistrates are still civil servants. A person is arrested for rigging an election that involved the election of the governor. You can see the difficulty, the practical difficulties in moving those cases. Therefore, but if the independent tribunal is established, which is not under control of any state, and the judges there are not civil servants answerable to anybody, you could see that things will be fast-tracked. I told you the legal position, the rules that can be amended are being adjusted by the chief judges, but I'm telling you the practical effect of what happens and how we can deal with it permanently so that there will be deterrence and there will be free and fair elections in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much. I like the fact that you referenced what the administration of the late President Musa Yar'Adua did, given the fact that you served under the administration, and this was a president who admitted that he came into office through a flawed election, but then he was particular about electoral reforms. And of course, the Electoral Offences Tribunal was one of his key recommendations, which INEC is also now advocating for. So I like the fact that you are putting a strong word behind that advocacy. However, I would like your thoughts on what the current president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has just done regarding the letter that he sent to the Senate requesting for the termination of the appointment of 3 resident electoral commissioners, RECs, who had previously been suspended, those from Adamawa, Sokoto, and Abia, given the fact that, again, this is in line with dealing with atrocities and untoward actions during election. A lot of people are saying that this is very commendable, but that the president may need to do more. What are your thoughts on the step that he has taken along this line? And what are your thoughts on the landmark judgment that INEC secured with the REC in Akwa Ibom, who has also, who has been who has been prosecuted, since 2019, but then has just had his judgment delivered. 3 years the professor will spend in jail. What are your thoughts also about that, given the fact that people thought that bringing professors from the academia to come and superintend, over electoral process will ensure credibility, will ensure, transparency and fairness, but here we are, professors are now going to jail on account of the illegitimate actions that they took while superintending over the electoral process. What are your thoughts on this, sir?
Thank you very much. First, I am extremely happy. First, the judiciary is always equal to the task. And the judiciary is giving a strong signal to the society that we are not going to condone election infractions committed by INEC officials. That is a clear signal that the judiciary is not ready to condone that. It's also a clear signal that the judiciary is ready to clean up the system. If people are brought before the court and evidence is produced, the judiciary is ready to deal with the situation decisively. And it's a happy development. As to the president of this country, it's also a happy development for him to have the courage to do what he did, to terminate the appointment of the resident electoral commissioners who were involved in electoral infractions. Imagine that the umpire himself is the person bending the rules, trying to shape the goal of the match. And the president has made it clear that I am not in a position, I will not, as president of this country, condone such a situation. These are all giving signal that in subsequent election will have some form of credibility. They will be clear, it will be clear to everybody participating that, oh, I don't want to lose my job. Then it will be a clear signal that, oh, I don't want to go to prison. These are positive developments that are happening in our electoral process. But we need to go more. We need to also go more. We need to create a deterrence for the young people that blindly follow politicians and get into electoral violences, committing crimes. We need to record more convictions. And I have suggested, and I'm going to suggest, and I'm suggesting now, that the Professor Yakubu should have an interface urgently with the chief judges of the 36 states and that of the federal capital to address pending issues relating to electoral malpractices that are in court at the lower level, so that we can move and clean up the system before the 2027 election. But let me, on the summary of what I'm saying, I commend President Ahmed Tinubu, and I commend the courage of the judiciary for convicting the professor. Of course, the wisdom of Professor Yakubu bringing professors was that they teach. In marking, it is presumed they should have unbiased culture, teaching students, giving them the grades they have deserved. But, in every society you have some deviants. And you have people who, in spite of what they are, a professor like that is like what you say if you carry a pig, you dress the pig, you wash the pig, it will still go and sleep in the mud. That is what that professor in Akwa Ibom is. and he will see the music. He's a disgrace to himself. He's a disgrace to his family, and he's a disgrace to the Electoral Commission. But of course, he has used himself in a manner that is not compatible with the terms of the society, expectation of the society in electoral matters. And the judges have clearly shown him. I read the judgment, and the language the judge has used in giving a conviction is so strong that we think a signal. I will advise Professor Yakubu to send a copy of that that conviction, that judgment, to all the top officials of his INEC, including the resident commissioners, to embrace them of the fact that they are not immune to convictions if they go outside the law in order to thwart a fair and clean election.
All right, very well said, sir. I mean, that also toes the line of what Dr. Tony Radia, respected journalist, former Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, said recently about the need for stricter rules, stricter punishments for electoral offenders. And I like what you have suggested to the INEC chairman regarding the meeting with 36 Chief Justices of the Federation. I think that's a fantastic idea. But very quickly, before we let you go, sir, what key advice, say one or two, will you therefore give to the president and the executive, themselves towards 2027 elections? The sort of reforms that will be necessary to change the situation in Nigeria for the better, now that the election is fast approaching. It's still 2 years away, but of course people are preparing. What keyword will you have for the president?
I will advise Mr. President to represent the Electoral Offences Tribunal, the establishment of election malpractices tribunal, that is Electoral Offences Tribunal, before the 2027 election. It will give a clear signal on the part of government that government is not ready to condone violence. And if it does that, I can assure you the system, the framework for a clean system and a clean election will be prepared historically by Mr. President. Mr. President will make history because it has to do with the willpower of the president to ensure that Electoral Offences Tribunal is established. And I believe President Bola Tinubu has the willpower to do that. And I also believe my successor will go back to Prince Fagbemi, SN, will look at that law. It has been all there. It's already dying. It's already there. The drafted law is already with the Minister of Justice. They can represent it as an executive bill to the National Assembly through Mr. President. Mr. President can represent it. And we also know that the Senate President, who is a lawyer, and the current Senate and the House of Reps should speedily be encouraged to pass that law. And that's one great thing we support. We make the system clean, fair, in the eyes of everybody.
Well, all right.
And that has been the worry of everybody, lack of prosecution, speedy prosecution of people who have committed the crimes. And once a tribunal is established, separate, dealing only with electoral offenses, I can assure you the system will be very fair.
Well, all right. On that note, Chief Michael Aondoakaa, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us on The Morning Show this morning.